Welcome to Sino Warfare with Ralph D. Sawyer. The highly dramatic siege that unfolded at Jinyang near present-day Taiyuan in 405 BC not only initiated theoretical consciousness of water's potential, it indelibly affected the mindset of martial theorists and military commanders, not to mention the general populace. Shortly after Jin's powerful clans had segmented the mighty state into 6 enclaves, the obstreperous and insatiable Zhao, leader of the Zhou clan, coerced the ruling families in the newly created areas of Han, Wei, and Zhao into participating in a coalition effort that succeeded in destroying the other 2 families and annexing their territory. He then persuaded Han and Wei to cede additional territory to him. But Zhao rejected a similar request. Infuriated, Zhao compelled Han and Wei to join him in assaulting Zhao's bastion of Jinyang, where the populace was ensconced behind a solid double-wall perimeter. When 3 months of intermittent assaults failed to seize the city, he had it encircled with a countervailing wall designed to retain the floodwaters and maintain their pressure, then broke open the river embankments. The water eventually penetrated the gates, inundating the city. After 3 years, just when conditions appeared hopeless, a Zhao strategist managed to clandestinely persuade Han and Wei to betray the coalition by playing upon their fear of being extinguished in turn. According to the reprisal in the Great Shiji, quote, on the appointed night, Zhao's forces slew the troops guarding the dike's embankments and destroyed parts of them so that the water flooded Zhou's encampment. While his army chaotically tried to rescue themselves from the water's onslaught, forces from Han and Wei launched a sudden pincer attack from the 2 wings, and the Earl of Zhao led his troops in a frontal assault. They severely defeated Zhou's army and captured Zhao himself. As a result, the victors executed Zhao, exterminated his clan, and turned his head into a lacquered drinking vessel. China's most catastrophic aquatic attack unfolded 2,000 years later when the powerful rebel Li Zicheng flooded the major city of Kaifeng, formerly known as Daliang, in 1642. Being one of China's largest and most sophisticated Ming cities, it was well provisioned, stoutly defended, easily capable of withstanding strikes. But after 2 assaults failed, Li besieged the city for more than a month before deciding to resort to an aquatic attack that would employ water from the Yellow River more than 10 miles to the north. A few thousand men dug a channel across the alluvial plains, but as the water flowed slowly and was only 5 inches deep, it lacked the force necessary to directly impact the walls. Nevertheless, it gradually filled the massive defensive ditch that surrounded the city to a depth of more than 25 feet, creating an impassable lake, some 40 feet across, said to be worth 100,000 mailed or armored soldiers. Growing increasingly frustrated, 2 months later, Li deputed another force to destroy the Yellow River's embankment, albeit reluctantly because he didn't want to destroy the city's valuables or risk losing the most attractive prisoners, the children. Rumors that the defenders were attempting to flood the rebels by breaking a nearby embankment on the assumption that their own reinforced walls would be able to withstand a moderate amount of water apparently prompted his precipitousness. In fact, the Ming contingent apparently did succeed in causing a partial breach, but without significant effects. After shifting his forces to higher ground, Li deputed some 40,000 men to sunder the embankment at nearby Majiako. Meanwhile, it was feared that the seasonal water surge usually experienced on the river god's birthday, the 17th of the 9th month, might prove disastrous. Several days of torrential rains caused the much-anticipated turbulence to commence on the 14th, and the roaring waters reached the city walls on the morning of the 15th. They quickly smashed through the gates, despite fervent efforts to reinforce them with earth, and so completely swirled through the city that just a few rooftops and high towers remained above water by the morning of the 18th. Only 20,000 among the original populace of several 100,000 survived. Some 10,000 rebel troops that had been encamped north of the city also drowned. Moreover, because the city was completely devastated, Li Zicheng had to move on in his quest to overthrow the Ming dynasty. It was an objective he successfully achieved, but only briefly enjoyed when he captured Beijing in the 4th month of 1644. Even more dramatically, water can be used as a ram by breaking an upstream dam. Just as Xunzi's analogy suggests, its sudden release can create such a powerful surge that stones and large logs are swept up and carried along. The debris then augments the ram's impact, enabling it to rapidly destroy earthen fortifications that lack stone facing, as well as sweep away any wooden palisades and engulf encampments along the embankments. Images available on the internet from the famous Johnstone flood of more than a century ago provide dramatic evidence of the power of these tsunami-like fronts. A more controllable variant of the ram can be created by damming a river or major stream with sandbags, then releasing the temporary reservoir at a predetermined moment, such as when the enemy's forces are fording the river. Being a time-consuming tactic, it can only be effectively employed against commanders who neglect basic reconnaissance measures, or can be lured into hastily crossing the river, contrary to numerous admonitions in the military writings from Xunzi onward. Although infrequently practiced over the centuries, it received enormous impetus from Han Xin's brilliant exploitation during the protracted struggle to wrest control of the realm that established the Han dynasty. Deputed by Liu Bang to conquer the resurgent state of Qi in 203 BC, Han Xin's hastily assembled motley force of 30,000 men had to confront a massive 200,000-man, well-supported rescue force from Chu along the Wei River. Personality conflicts and the arrogance of the Chu commander, they turned the clash into a highly dramatic episode that has been preserved in China's first in synthetic history, the Shiji, and retold in ever more dramatic fashion thereafter. Han Xin first had the river dammed upstream. Then he feigned cowardice by mounting a hasty retreat back across the river after mounting an early morning amphibious assault with half his army in order to exploit Long Zhu, the enemy's commander's well-known disdain for him. Oblivious to any possibility of subterfuge, Long ordered his troops across in hot pursuit, only to see many of them swept away by a sudden onrush of water after Han's troops sundered the temporary dam. They then decimated the now isolated Chu soldiers on the far shore, giving Han Xin a major victory. Now, being a critical event in the Han's ascension, the incident was invariably recalled by future military commanders, including Tang Taizong, one of the founders of the Tang dynasty, who employed an aquatic ram early on in the Tang. Military writers from the Song dynasty onward, including the unknown author of the influential Song dynasty compendium known as the 100 Unorthodox Strategies, which I've translated, frequently included in discussions of aquatic warfare and unorthodox tactics, and cited it in verification of the concept of exacerbating and exploiting flaws in enemy commanders, including arrogance, as was, of course, advocated and formulated in Xunzi's Art of War and Sun Bin's military methods. Of course, not all warfare involved the exploitation of water's power. Naval warfare began to emerge at the end of the Spring and Autumn period, but was mostly confined to riverine clashes, until it evolved to include battles in littoral waters from maybe the Song onward. As the development of naval craft and the nature of combat on China's expansive rivers are more appropriately the subject of separate talk, we'll take a brief look here at the imaginative way armies conceived to cross rivers with strong currents or depths that would otherwise preclude fording. The important Warring States military text, known as the Six Secret Teachings, advises that the equipment needed to overcome water obstacles should be prepared well in advance. Good idea, but transporting even small craft on the era's ox-pulled wagons was far too cumbersome to be common, especially when large forces attempted to negotiate difficult terrain. Makeshift rafts constructed from the bamboo readily available in the south, or strong reeds and shrub branches in other areas, were typically employed. But innovative commanders such as Han Xin also resorted to imaginative unorthodox methods, including inflated skins, and lashing large ceramic jars, the ones that are used to carry oil and soy sauce for cooking, together with spears. Ropes strung across the current also allowed the men to work their way across when the flow would otherwise carry everyone downstream. And, anyone who's had to cross a mountain stream while hiking will know how difficult and destabilizing just 1 foot of flowing water can be, especially if you're on slippery rocks. On the other hand, flowing water can be exploited to power kinetic weapons, heavily weighted vessels that are positioned, then released so that they collide with downstream targets, pummeling them. Over the century, their objectives have included defensive barriers, bridges, vessels at anchor, and obstacles deliberately in place to impede enemy advance. The fireboat, and even more destructive forms, still evolved and was effectively employed from the 3rd century AD onward to destroy vast enemy flotillas, such as at Cherby, better known as Red Cliffs, which is available in our important battle series, and of course was the subject of a famous movie. However, at this point, we'll turn to the question of denial and defer discussing the tactical deployment of fireboats until our talks on incendiary warfare. As always, thank you for watching.